Captain Sarah Chen stared at the massive alien vessel that had appeared in Earth's orbit 3 days ago. The ship stretched nearly 50 kilometers from bow to stern, its dark metal surface covered in geometric patterns that hurt to look at for too long. No windows, no obvious weapons, no communication arrays that human technology could identify. It simply hung there in the void, silent and ominous. "Still no response to our signals?" Chen asked, though she already knew the answer. Lieutenant Rodriguez shook his head from the communications station. "Nothing, Captain. We've tried every frequency, every protocol, even basic mathematics and music. They're either not receiving us or choosing to ignore us completely." Chen had been commanding the Orbital Defense Platform Aegis for 8 years. She'd seen asteroid threats, space debris, even a few close calls with solar flares. But nothing had prepared her for this. Humanity's first contact with an alien species, and it wasn't the peaceful meeting that scientists had hoped for. The bridge fell silent, except for the steady hum of life support systems. Through the reinforced viewport, Earth rotated slowly below them, a blue marble dotted with swirling white clouds. 7 billion people going about their lives, most of them still unaware of what hung above their heads. "Captain!" Ensign Park called from the sensor station, his voice tight with worry. "I'm detecting multiple energy signatures from the alien vessel. Something's happening." Chen moved to his station, studying the readouts. The ship's energy output had increased dramatically in the last few minutes. Patterns of light began to flicker along its hull, creating complex designs that seemed to pulse with their own rhythm. "Get me a direct line to command," Chen ordered. "Priority Alpha." Within seconds, the weathered face of Admiral Morrison appeared on the main screen. Behind him, Chen could see the bustling activity of the Global Defense Command Center on Earth. "Captain Chen, report," Morrison said, his voice grave. "Admiral, the alien vessel is showing increased energy activity. We're reading power levels that dwarf our most optimistic projections for their technology. Whatever they're preparing to do, it's big." Morrison nodded grimly. "We've been monitoring from down here. The UN Security Council has been in emergency session since the ship appeared. Every major world leader is involved now. The decision has been made to attempt direct contact." "Sir, with respect, we've been trying for 3 days. Not from orbit, Captain. We're sending Ambassador Williams up on a shuttle. She'll approach their ship directly and attempt face-to-face communication." Chen felt her stomach drop. Ambassador Williams was one of humanity's most skilled diplomats, a woman who had successfully negotiated peace treaties in some of the world's most volatile regions. But this wasn't a territorial dispute between nations. This was contact with a completely unknown alien intelligence. "Admiral, is that wise? We have no idea what their intentions are. For all we know, that ship could be carrying enough firepower to destroy our planet, yes. We're aware of the risks, Captain, but we can't simply wait and hope they'll decide to talk to us. Humanity has always solved its problems through communication and cooperation. This will be no different." Chen wanted to argue, but she held her tongue. She'd learned long ago when to push back against orders and when to simply follow them. This was clearly a decision that had come from the highest levels of government. "When will Ambassador Williams arrive?" "She's already en route. Her shuttle should reach your position within the hour. You'll escort her to within 5 kilometers of the alien vessel and maintain overwatch." The transmission ended, leaving Chen staring at the blank screen. Around her, the bridge crew continued their work, but she could feel the tension in the air. They were about to make humanity's first attempt at alien diplomacy, and everyone knew how much was riding on it. An hour later, Chen watched through the viewport as Ambassador Williams's shuttle approached the alien ship. The small craft looked absurdly tiny next to the massive vessel, like a minnow swimming up to a whale. "Shuttle Aurora, you are cleared for approach," Chen said into her communicator. "Remember, if anything goes wrong, anything at all, you abort immediately and return to Aegis. Understood, Captain, came Williams's calm voice. Beginning final approach now. The shuttle moved slowly toward the alien vessel, following a careful trajectory that the navigation team had calculated to appear non-threatening. As it drew closer, something unexpected happened. A section of the alien ship's hull began to glow, then slowly dilated open like an iris. The opening was perfectly sized for the shuttle. "They're inviting us in," Williams said, wonder evident in her voice. Chen felt a chill run down her spine. The aliens had been watching them, understanding their attempts at communication, and now they were responding. But was this an invitation or a trap? "Ambassador, I strongly recommend against entering their ship," Chen said. "We have no idea what's waiting inside." "Captain, this is exactly what we hoped for. They're showing us they want to communicate. I'm going in." Chen watched helplessly as the shuttle disappeared into the alien vessel. The opening closed behind it, sealing seamlessly back into the hull as if it had never existed. Minutes passed in tense silence. Then an hour. The communications team tried everything they could think of to reach the shuttle, but there was no response. Ambassador Williams and her pilot had vanished into the belly of the alien ship. "Captain," Lieutenant Rodriguez said suddenly, "I'm receiving a transmission. It's from the alien ship. Put it through." The main screen flickered to life, showing a strange, shifting image that resolved into something that might have been a face. The being had pale, translucent skin stretched over an angular skull, with large black eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. When it spoke, the words came in perfect English, though the voice had an odd, echoing quality. "Greetings, inhabitants of the third planet. I am what you would call an ambassador of the hegemony. We have received your representative and studied her mind. Your species shows potential." Chen's blood ran cold at the casual mention of studying Williams's mind. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Defense Force. We demand the immediate release of Ambassador Williams." The alien's expression didn't change. "Your ambassador is unharmed, though her understanding of reality has been expanded. She now knows the truth about your situation." "What situation? What are you talking about?" "Your species stands at a crossroads, Captain Chen. You have reached a level of technological development that has brought you to our attention. There are rules that govern such moments, rules that have been in place for millions of years." On the screen behind the alien, Chen could see what looked like star charts, showing vast networks of connected worlds, hundreds of them, maybe thousands, all linked by lines of light. "The galaxy operates under the guidance of the hegemony," the alien continued. "We maintain order, prevent chaos, ensure that developing species like yours don't disrupt the delicate balance that keeps civilization functioning. Your world will now be evaluated for integration into our collective." "Integration?" Chen's voice was sharp. "What does that mean?" "Your people will be studied, cataloged, and assigned roles within the hegemony based on your species' capabilities. Those who prove useful will be transported to appropriate worlds where they can contribute to the greater good. Those who do not—" The alien paused, tilting its head. "Those who do not will be recycled." The casual way it said the word recycled sent ice through Chen's veins. "And if we refuse?" "Refusal is not an option, Captain. No species has ever been given a choice in this matter. Your planet's resources will be harvested regardless. The only question is whether your people survive the transition." Chen looked around the bridge at her crew. She could see the same shock and horror on their faces that she felt in her heart. This wasn't first contact. This was a death sentence delivered with clinical politeness. "How long do we have?" "The evaluation will begin immediately. Our survey teams will begin studying your population centers within one of your planetary rotations. We estimate the process will take 30 of your days to complete." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Chen stared at the blank screen, her mind racing through the implications of what they'd just heard. Humanity had dreamed of contact with alien life for generations. They'd imagined peaceful exchanges of knowledge, cultural sharing, maybe even friendship among the stars. They'd never imagined this. "Captain," Rodriguez said quietly, "what do we do?" Chen turned to face her crew. These were good people, trained professionals who had dedicated their lives to protecting Earth. They were looking to her for answers she didn't have. "We inform command immediately," she said, forcing her voice to remain steady, "and then we start figuring out how to fight back." "Fight back?" Ensign Park's voice cracked slightly. "Captain, that ship is 50 times the size of anything we've ever built. Our weapons are designed for defending against asteroids and space debris, not this." Chen walked to the viewport and stared out at the alien vessel. It hung there motionless, dark and threatening against the star field. Somewhere inside it, Ambassador Williams was either dead or worse, and in 30 days, more ships would come to begin the systematic destruction of human civilization. She thought about her daughter on Earth, just starting her second year of college. She thought about the billions of people going about their daily lives, unaware that their entire species had just been marked for extinction or slavery. She thought about every human achievement, every work of art, every moment of love and joy and discovery that would be swept away as if it had never mattered. "Maybe our weapons aren't designed for this," Chen said finally. "But I'll be damned if we're going to just roll over and accept it. Humans have been fighting impossible odds since we climbed down from the trees. We've survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and every other disaster this universe has thrown at us." She turned back to face her crew. "Lieutenant Rodriguez, send a priority flash message to command. Full details of our conversation with the alien. Tell them we need every military asset in the system moved to defensive positions immediately." "Yes, ma'am." "Ensign Park, I want a complete analysis of that alien ship. Power signatures, structural weaknesses, anything we can use. If we're going to fight these things, we need to know everything we can about them." "Captain," Rodriguez said, "I hate to be the voice of pessimism, but even if we manage to damage or destroy their ship, they said there are thousands of worlds in their hegemony. They'll just send more." Chen nodded grimly. "You're probably right, but maybe that's not the point. Maybe the point is that when they come for humanity, we don't go quietly. We show them that some species can't be broken, can't be recycled, can't be absorbed into their collective without a fight." She paused, thinking about the aliens' casual dismissal of human resistance. No species had ever been given a choice. No one had ever fought back. Maybe it's time someone did. The next several hours passed in a blur of activity. The message to Earth Command triggered an immediate response. Every orbital platform, every spacecraft, every military satellite in the system was placed on high alert. The space elevator stations began emergency evacuations of non-essential personnel. But Chen knew it wasn't enough. Humanity's space-based defenses were designed for protecting Earth from natural disasters, not from an advanced alien civilization that had been conquering worlds for millions of years. As she stood on the bridge watching Earth rotate slowly below, Chen made a decision that would change everything. She opened a secure channel to Admiral Morrison. "Admiral, I need to speak with the UN Security Council directly." Morrison's face appeared on screen, showing the strain of the last few hours. "Captain, they're in emergency session discussing evacuation protocols and surrender terms." "Surrender terms?" Chen's voice was sharp. "Admiral, with respect, we can't surrender. These aliens aren't interested in coexistence. They're going to destroy our civilization whether we fight or not. The only choice we have is whether we make them pay a price for it." Morrison was quiet for a long moment. "What are you suggesting, Captain?" Chen took a deep breath. I'm suggesting we stop thinking like a peaceful species trying to avoid conflict and start thinking like a species fighting for survival. The aliens said no one has ever fought back before. Maybe that's because no one has ever had to. Maybe it's because no one has ever been angry enough. She looked out at the alien ship again, feeling something cold and hard settle in her chest. They want to study us? Let them. But they're going to learn that humans are very dangerous when you threaten their families. The morning sun cast long shadows across the ruins of downtown Geneva as Colonel Marcus Reed surveyed the devastation through his binoculars. 3 weeks had passed since the alien survey teams had begun their evaluation of humanity, and the world had changed beyond recognition. The aliens called themselves the Hegemony, and they worked with ruthless efficiency. Their survey ships had descended on major population centers across the globe, deploying teams of pale, spider-like creatures that moved through cities like ghosts. They studied everything: human behavior, technology, social structures, weaknesses. But they had made one critical error in their calculations. They had assumed that humans, like every other species they had encountered, would submit quietly to being cataloged and processed. "Colonel, we've got movement in Sector 7, came the voice of Sergeant Williams through Reed's earpiece. "Looks like another survey team, about 20 strong." Reed lowered his binoculars and keyed his radio. "All units, this is Reaper 6. We have confirmed alien presence in Sector 7. Execute Plan Tango in 5 minutes. Remember, these things are fast, but they're not invincible. We've proven that." The last 3 weeks had been a crash course in alien biology and technology. The first survey teams had expected no resistance and had paid for that assumption with their lives. Human soldiers had learned quickly that the aliens' advanced energy shields could be overwhelmed with concentrated fire, and their pale skin was surprisingly vulnerable to good old-fashioned steel and explosives. Reed's unit, the 3rd Special Operations Group, had been reassigned from counter-terrorism operations to something that would have been pure science fiction just a month ago: alien hunters. They had developed tactics specifically designed to exploit the weaknesses they had discovered in the enemy. "Sir," came another voice over the radio, "this is Hawk 2. I've got eyes on the alien ship. It's hovering about 200 meters above the University District. Same pattern as before. They're focusing on areas with high concentrations of scientific equipment and research facilities." Reed nodded grimly. The aliens weren't just cataloging humans randomly. They were specifically targeting places where humanity's brightest minds worked: universities, research institutes, technology companies, military bases. They were trying to understand human innovation and creativity, probably to determine how useful the species would be as slaves. "All units, move to positions. Remember, we're not trying to win this engagement. We're trying to send a message." Reed led his team through the abandoned streets of Geneva. The city had been evacuated 2 days after the first alien survey ship arrived, but small teams of volunteers had remained behind: scientists, soldiers, and ordinary civilians who refused to run. They called themselves the Resistance, though Reed preferred a simpler term: pissed-off humans. The alien survey team was methodically working its way through the CERN facility when Reed's forces struck. The aliens had energy weapons that could cut through steel like butter, personal shields that deflected most projectiles, and enhanced speed that made them blur when they moved. But they had never faced an enemy that fought with pure, directed rage. The first alien died when Corporal Jenkins triggered a remotely detonated explosive that brought down half a building on top of it. The second fell to concentrated rifle fire from 3 different angles, overwhelming its shield generators. The third tried to flee and ran directly into a carefully placed minefield, but the aliens adapted quickly. Within minutes, they had formed a defensive perimeter and were calling for support from their ship. Reed watched through his scope as the massive vessel began to descend toward the city, its weapons systems powering up. "All units, withdraw immediately," Reed commanded. Pattern Delta, Rendezvous Point 7. The human forces melted away into the urban landscape just as the alien ship opened fire. Energy beams lanced down from the sky, turning entire city blocks into molten slag. But the humans were already gone, vanished into the extensive tunnel system they had been preparing since the aliens first arrived. Reed regrouped with his teams in an abandoned subway station 5 kilometers from the attack site. They had lost 3 soldiers, but they had killed 8 aliens and forced the enemy to reveal the full destructive power of their weapons. More importantly, they had proven that the survey teams could be stopped. "Colonel," Sergeant Williams said, checking her tablet, "we're getting reports from resistance cells in 12 different cities: London, New York, Tokyo, Moscow. They're all hitting alien survey teams simultaneously." Reed smiled for the first time in weeks. The plan was working. Instead of allowing the aliens to study humanity passively, the species they were trying to catalog was fighting back with everything it had. Every survey team that deployed faced immediate attack. Every alien ship that tried to land encountered prepared defenses. Every attempt to establish a foothold on Earth was met with violent resistance. "What's the casualty report?" "Heavy on both sides," Williams replied. "We're losing a lot of good people, but we're taking aliens with us. Intelligence estimates we've eliminated nearly 40% of their survey forces." Reed's radio crackled with an incoming transmission. "Reaper 6, this is command. Priority message from Admiral Morrison." The colonel switched to the secure channel. Morrison's voice was tired but determined. "Marcus, I need you to get your people to these coordinates immediately." A set of numbers appeared on Reed's display. "We've got a situation developing in the Swiss Alps. One of their larger ships went down near a research facility, and the science team thinks they might be able to salvage some intact alien technology." Reed studied the coordinates. The location was in the mountains, about 60 kilometers from their current position. It would be a dangerous journey with alien ships patrolling the skies, but if they could get their hands on working alien technology. "On our way, Admiral. What kind of timeline are we looking at?" "The wreckage is still smoking, so whatever brought it down happened recently. But our satellite feeds show more alien ships converging on the area. You'll have maybe 6 hours before the place is swarming with their recovery teams. 6 hours to reach a crash site in the mountains and extract alien technology while avoiding enemy patrols." Reed had led operations with worse odds, but not many. "Understood, sir. Reaper 6 out." The journey to the crash site took 4 hours of hard travel through mountain terrain. Reed's team moved in small groups, using natural cover and careful timing to avoid the alien search patterns. They had learned that the enemy ships used advanced sensors, but those sensors had limitations when it came to detecting humans who knew how to mask their heat signatures and electronic emissions. When they finally reached the coordinates, Reed was surprised by what he found. The alien ship hadn't just crashed, it had been shot down. The wreckage was scattered across a mountain valley, with debris fields stretching for kilometers. Whatever had brought it down had hit it hard. "Sir?" Williams whispered, pointing toward a cluster of buildings near the main wreckage. "That's the Meridian Research Institute. They specialize in advanced materials science and theoretical physics." Reed raised his binoculars and studied the facility. It looked intact, though there were scorch marks on several buildings. As he watched, he saw movement, human figures moving deliberately between the structures. "Let's go find out what happened here." Dr. Elena Vasquez met them at the Institute's main entrance. She was a slight woman in her 50s with gray-streaked hair and intense green eyes that seemed to burn with excitement despite the exhaustion evident in her face. "Colonel Reed? Admiral Morrison told us you were coming. We don't have much time." She led them through the facility's corridors, which were filled with equipment Reed didn't recognize and couldn't pronounce. Scientists and technicians worked frantically at computer terminals and laboratory benches, their movements urgent but precise. "Doctor, what exactly happened here?" Reed asked as they walked. The aliens came for our research, Vasquez replied. Same as everywhere else, but they made the mistake of trying to land their ship on our main testing facility. We were in the middle of running experiments on a new particle acceleration system when they arrived. She gestured toward a massive chamber visible through reinforced windows. The space was filled with twisted metal and crystalline structures that seemed to bend light around them. We redirected the entire output of our accelerator array directly into their ship's hull. The energy discharge was significant. Reed stared at the wreckage visible through the windows. You shot down an alien warship with a science experiment? Essentially, yes, though it nearly destroyed our facility in the process. Vasquez led them into a laboratory where several team members were working on pieces of alien technology. But the important thing is what we've learned from the wreckage. She gestured toward a workbench where alien devices were being carefully disassembled. Their technology is incredibly advanced, but it follows principles we can understand. More importantly, it has vulnerabilities we can exploit. Dr. James Park, a young physicist with nervous energy, looked up from his work. Colonel, the aliens use a form of quantum field manipulation for their shields and weapons, but the field generators are surprisingly fragile when exposed to specific electromagnetic frequencies. Reed moved closer to examine the alien components. They were beautiful in an alien way, with flowing curves and surfaces that seemed to shift color depending on the viewing angle. Can we replicate this? Build weapons that can consistently penetrate their defenses? Not exactly, Vasquez said, but we can build weapons designed to disrupt their field generators. Essentially, we can turn their advanced technology against them. Williams checked her watch. Colonel, we've got about 90 minutes before those alien recovery ships arrive. Reed nodded. Doctor, what do you need from us? Help us evacuate our research data and as much salvageable alien technology as we can carry. We've identified 17 key components that could revolutionize human understanding of physics and engineering, but we need to get them to a secure facility where we can continue our work. The next hour was a frenzy of activity. Reed's soldiers worked alongside the scientists to pack critical research materials and alien artifacts. They used the Institute's own vehicles to transport the most valuable items to a secondary location deeper in the mountains, where other resistance cells were establishing hidden facilities. As they prepared to leave, Vasquez pulled Reed aside. Colonel, there's something else you need to know. We've been monitoring alien communication since we brought down their ship. They're not just surveying us anymore. What do you mean? The hegemony ship in orbit has been transmitting regular reports to somewhere else, somewhere very far away. Based on the signal patterns and energy requirements, we think they're communicating with their home territory. Reed felt a chill that had nothing to do with the mountain air. They're calling for reinforcements. More than that, they're requesting a full fleet. According to our translations, humanity has been classified as a hostile species requiring military pacification. We've moved beyond survey and evaluation, Colonel. We're now officially at war. The alien recovery ships arrived just as Reed's convoy disappeared into the mountain tunnels. From his hidden observation post, the colonel watched as sleek alien craft descended onto the crash site. Dozens of the pale, spider-like creatures emerged and began systematically collecting the wreckage. But they were too late. The most valuable pieces of their technology were already in human hands, being studied by some of the brightest minds on Earth. And the data that Dr. Vasquez's team had gathered would be transmitted to resistance cells around the globe within hours. Reed keyed his radio. All units, this is Reaper 6. Phase 1 is complete. We are officially transitioning to Phase 2 of operations. Phase 1 had been about proving that humans could fight back. They had shown the aliens that Earth wouldn't submit quietly to conquest and slavery. Every survey team sent down had faced immediate attack. Every attempt to establish a foothold had been met with violence and resistance. Phase 2 would be about turning that resistance into actual victory. Admiral Morrison, this is Colonel Reed. The package is secure, and Dr. Vasquez's team has some interesting news about our visitors' communication habits. Morrison's voice came back immediately. Understood, Marcus. Get that team and their research to Safe Haven immediately. We've got reports coming in from resistance cells worldwide, and it's time to coordinate our next move. Safe Haven was the code name for a massive underground facility that had been constructed beneath the Rocky Mountains over the past 3 weeks. It housed scientists, engineers, military personnel, and civilian volunteers from around the world. Humanity was quite literally going underground to continue the fight. As Reed's convoy wound through mountain roads toward their destination, he thought about the conversation he'd had with Dr. Vasquez. The aliens were calling for reinforcements, which meant humanity didn't have much time before facing a full-scale invasion fleet. But they weren't the same species that had been quietly cataloged 3 weeks ago. They had learned to fight. They had learned to hide. They had learned to turn alien technology against its creators. And most importantly, they had learned that the universe's most advanced civilization could bleed. The hegemony had made their biggest mistake when they told humanity that resistance was impossible, that no species had ever been given a choice. They were about to discover that humans were very good at doing impossible things, especially when someone told them they couldn't. Admiral Morrison stood in the command center of Safe Haven, studying the holographic display that showed the space around Earth. 47 alien warships had arrived during the night, their dark hulls forming a loose sphere around the planet. Each ship was larger than the original survey vessel, and their combined firepower could turn Earth's surface to molten glass within hours. How long until they're in position for planetary bombardment? Morrison asked. Dr. Elena Vasquez looked up from her analysis station. Based on their current trajectory and the positioning patterns we've observed, approximately 6 hours. They're being methodical about it, making sure they have complete coverage before they begin. Morrison nodded grimly. 6 hours to implement a plan that was either brilliant or completely insane, depending on how you looked at it. Around the command center, the best minds humanity had to offer worked frantically to coordinate what might be their species' last desperate gambit. Colonel Reed appeared at Morrison's shoulder, his tactical gear dusty from the underground tunnels that connected Safe Haven's various sections. Admiral, all teams are in position. We've confirmed that every major resistance cell worldwide has received the technical specifications. Everyone knows their part. And our orbital assets? Captain Chen reports that the Aegis platform and the remaining defense satellites are ready for synchronized deployment. It's not much firepower compared to what the aliens are bringing, but it should be enough to cause the kind of distraction we need. Morrison studied the tactical display again. The plan they had developed over the past month was unlike anything in military history. Instead of trying to match the aliens' superior technology ship for ship, humanity would fight the way humans had always fought when facing overwhelming odds, with cunning, desperation, and absolute refusal to give up. Dr. Vasquez, what's the status of Project Prometheus? The physicist wiped sweat from her forehead before responding. We've successfully reverse-engineered the alien quantum field manipulation technology. The modifications to our existing infrastructure are complete. Every major power plant, particle accelerator, and communications array on the planet is now capable of generating focused quantum disruption fields. And you're certain this will work? Vasquez hesitated. The mathematics are sound, and our small-scale tests have been successful. But, Admiral, we're talking about coordinating a planetary-scale quantum field manipulation. If we miscalculate even slightly, we could end up destroying ourselves faster than the aliens ever could. Morrison looked around the command center at the faces of the people who had volunteered to implement this desperate plan. Scientists who had abandoned their comfortable lives to crawl through underground tunnels. Soldiers who had learned to fight an enemy that shouldn't exist. Civilians who had given up everything to ensure their species survived. They all knew the risks. They all knew that failure meant extinction, but they also knew that surrender meant the same thing. Doctor, 4 weeks ago, the aliens told us that no species had ever been given a choice in their integration process. They said resistance was impossible. Morrison turned to face the main display. It's time to show them what humans do when someone tells us something is impossible. The first phase of the operation began precisely at noon, Greenwich Mean Time. Resistance cells around the globe simultaneously activated the modified power grids in their regions. The quantum field generators that Dr. Vasquez's team had built from salvaged alien technology came online one by one, creating a network of overlapping energy fields that surrounded the entire planet. On the Aegis orbital platform, Captain Chen watched her instruments as Earth began to glow with an eerie blue-white light. The quantum fields were invisible to the naked eye, but they registered clearly on both human and alien sensors. Captain, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, the alien fleet is responding. Their ships are moving into a tighter formation, and their weapon systems are powering up. Good, Chen said, settling into her command chair. That means they're taking the bait. The aliens had superior technology and overwhelming numbers, but they had one critical weakness that humans had learned to exploit. They were predictable. The hegemony had conquered thousands of worlds using the same tactics over millions of years. They had become so confident in their methods that they couldn't adapt when someone changed the rules. All orbital platforms. This is Aegis Actual. Execute Phase 2. Across Earth's orbital space, the remaining human defense platforms opened fire simultaneously. Their weapons were primitive compared to alien technology, but they weren't trying to destroy the enemy ships. They were trying to force them into a specific formation. The aliens responded exactly as predicted, moving their vessels to counter what appeared to be a desperate last stand by humanity's orbital defenses. Their ships formed a tight, defensive sphere, their shields overlapping to create an impenetrable barrier, which was exactly where humanity wanted them. Dr. Vasquez, Morrison spoke into his communicator from Safe Haven, the fleet is in position. Are you ready for Phase 3? All planetary stations report ready, Admiral. Initiating quantum field convergence in 3, 2, 1, now. Across Earth, every modified power plant, particle accelerator, and communications array fired simultaneously. The quantum fields that had been building around the planet suddenly converged into a single or focused beam that lanced upward into space. The energy output was staggering, equivalent to the total power consumption of human civilization concentrated into one weapon. The beam struck the alien fleet at the exact moment when their ships were clustered together in defensive formation. The aliens' shields, designed to deflect energy weapons and projectiles, were completely useless against quantum field manipulation that operated on the same principles as their own technology. The result was spectacular. 47 alien warships simply ceased to exist in the span of 3 seconds. Not destroyed, not damaged, completely removed from reality as the quantum fields tore apart the fundamental forces holding their matter together. The silence that followed was absolute. Did we actually do it? Rodriguez whispered from the Aegis bridge. Chen stared at her sensors, running diagnostics to make sure they weren't malfunctioning. The readings were clear. Where moments before there had been an invasion fleet capable of destroying Earth, there was now empty space and slowly dispersing clouds of exotic particles. Confirmed, she said, her voice barely steady. All alien vessels have been eliminated. In the Safe Haven Command Center, nobody spoke for a full minute. The holographic display showed Earth surrounded by debris fields where the alien ships had been, but no intact enemy vessels. Then Dr. Vasquez began to laugh. It started as a quiet chuckle, then built into full-blown, slightly hysterical laughter. "We did it," she said between gasps. We actually did it! We just destroyed an invasion fleet using physics they taught us. The celebration that followed was brief. Morrison knew that while they had won this battle, the war was far from over. The hegemony had been conquering worlds for millions of years. One defeated fleet wouldn't end their expansion. Colonel Reed, Morrison said, I need you to coordinate the recovery of any salvageable alien technology from the debris fields. Dr. Vasquez, start analyzing the quantum field data from the attack. We need to understand exactly what we did and how to replicate it. Admiral, Reed said, what about the original ship, the one that started all this? Morrison had almost forgotten about the survey vessel that still hung in Earth's orbit. It had gone silent during the battle, its crew presumably dead or fled. But it represented something important, proof of humanity's victory. Captain Chen, please investigate the original alien vessel. If there are any survivors, I want to speak with them. 2 hours later, Chen led a boarding party onto the alien ship. The corridors were dark and silent, filled with the strange geometric patterns that seemed to hurt human eyes. They found the bridge empty, except for one figure hunched over what might have been a communication console. It was the same alien that had first spoken to them weeks ago, the one who had called itself an ambassador. But now it seemed smaller, diminished. Its pale skin had taken on a gray tinge, and its large black eyes were filled with something that might have been fear. You, it said when it saw Chen, you destroyed them all, an entire battle fleet. How is this possible? Chen studied the creature that had condemned her species to death or slavery. We learned, she said simply. You taught us that resistance was impossible, so we decided to prove you wrong. But the mathematics, the energy requirements, your species doesn't have the technology for quantum field manipulation on that scale. We do now. You gave it to us when you crashed one of your ships into our research facility. Thank you for that, by the way. The alien stared at her with those disturbing black eyes. You don't understand what you've done. The hegemony has maintained order in this galaxy for longer than your species has existed. Without our guidance, chaos will return. Worlds will war against each other. Civilizations will destroy themselves. Chen felt a cold smile spread across her face. Then I guess you'd better hope we're more reasonable than you were. The alien's head tilted in confusion. What do you mean? I mean that humanity just became the new major power in this region of space. And unlike you, we're going to give other species a choice. Back in Safe Haven, Morrison was coordinating the global response to humanity's victory. Reports were coming in from around the world as the quantum field generators powered down and normal communications were restored. The plan had worked better than anyone had dared to hope, but now came the hard part. Dr. Vasquez, Morrison said, how long before we can replicate today's success? Admiral, the quantum field convergence put enormous strain on our power infrastructure. We'll need at least 3 weeks to repair the damage and recalibrate the systems. And that's assuming we can maintain the same level of international cooperation. Morrison nodded. 3 weeks was probably enough time for the hegemony to send another fleet. But it would have to do. More importantly, humanity now had working alien technology and the knowledge of how to use it. What about offensive capabilities? Can we build ships that use this quantum field technology? Theoretically, yes. But Admiral, we're talking about a complete revolution in human engineering. It would take months to build even a single vessel, and years to create a fleet. Then we'd better get started. Colonel Reed entered the command center, carrying a data pad filled with salvage reports. Admiral, we've recovered intact alien technology from 17 different ships. Dr. Park's team thinks they can reverse engineer their faster-than-light communication systems within 2 weeks. Good. We need to contact other species in this galaxy, warn them about the hegemony's methods, maybe find some allies. Morrison walked to the main display, which now showed Earth surrounded by debris fields and human recovery vessels. It was a surreal sight, the aftermath of humanity's first interstellar war, fought and won in the space of a few hours. "Admiral," Vasquez said, looking up from her analysis, "I've been thinking about what that alien said, about chaos returning to the galaxy without the hegemony's control. And what if they're right? What if removing them from power creates more problems than it solves?" Morrison considered the question carefully. It was the same concern that had troubled him since the battle ended. Humanity had just declared war on a civilization that had maintained galactic stability for millions of years. The consequences could be devastating. "Dr. Vasquez, 3 weeks ago, the hegemony told us we would be evaluated for usefulness, and that those who failed the evaluation would be recycled. They offered us slavery or death, nothing else." Morrison gestured toward the display showing Earth's debris-ringed orbit. "Today, we proved that their way isn't the only way. Maybe chaos is better than the kind of order they were offering. And if we're wrong, then we'll deal with the consequences. But at least we'll deal with them as free beings making our own choices." The alien ambassador was brought to safe haven under heavy guard later that day. Morrison met with it in a secure conference room, flanked by Colonel Reed and Dr. Vasquez. The creature sat motionless in its chair, those disturbing black eyes fixed on the humans across from it. "I have a message for your hegemony," Morrison said without preamble. "Earth is no longer available for conquest. Any ships that enter our solar system with hostile intent will be destroyed." "You cannot maintain this resistance indefinitely," the alien replied. "The hegemony controls thousands of worlds, hundreds of fleets. You have destroyed one battle group. We have hundreds more. Then you'd better bring them all, because we're not backing down." The alien was quiet for a long moment. "What do you want?" Morrison leaned forward. "We want you to leave, all of you, and we want you to stop conquering other worlds. The galaxy doesn't belong to the hegemony." "Impossible. The lesser species need our guidance. Without structure, without control, they destroy themselves." "Like we just destroyed ourselves?" Morrison asked. "We seem to have managed just fine without your guidance." "You are an anomaly, one species out of thousands. Your success proves nothing." Dr. Vasquez spoke up. "Then let us prove it. Give other species the same choice you gave us. Let them decide whether they want your guidance or their freedom." The alien's head tilted. "And if they choose freedom and destroy themselves in the process? Then that's their choice to make. Freedom includes the right to fail." Morrison stood up. "You have 1 week to transmit our terms to your leadership. Any hegemony ships that approach Earth after that deadline will be met with the same welcome we gave your invasion fleet." As the guards escorted the alien away, Morrison wondered if humanity had just made the right choice or the most catastrophic mistake in galactic history. But as he looked around at the faces of the people who had fought so hard for their species' survival, he realized it didn't matter. For the first time in millions of years, someone had told the hegemony that their way wasn't the only way. Someone had proven that advanced technology and overwhelming numbers weren't enough to defeat a species that refused to surrender. Someone had finally said no. And as reports continued to arrive of human ships being launched from hidden facilities around the world, armed with quantum field weapons and crewed by volunteers who had learned to fight impossible odds, Morrison allowed himself to smile. The galaxy was about to learn that humans were done being civil.